August 14th, 1971. Red Rooster Restaurant, Harlem. 150 witnesses. Raymond Ice Walker walked in to kill Frank Lucas. The Genovese family had paid him $25,000 for a public execution. What happened in the next 30 seconds would become the most talked about moment in Harlem's criminal history. 12 stab wounds, one collapsed lung, and then Frank Lucas calmly finished his steak dinner. While Ice was being loaded into an ambulance, barely alive, Frank sat at his table and ate, slowly, methodically, like he'd just swatted a fly. This wasn't just self-defense. This was a message. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand why the Genovese family wanted Frank Lucas dead. By August 1971, Frank had been operating independently for 3 years. His blue magic heroin had taken over the East Coast. He was making $1 million a week, and he'd done it all without paying tribute to the Italian mob. That was the problem. For decades, the 5 families controlled the heroin trade through the French Connection. They had a system. They had rules. And one of those rules was simple. If you sold drugs in New York, you paid the mob. But Frank Lucas had bypassed their entire system, gone straight to Southeast Asia, created his own supply chain, and refused to pay anyone a dime. The Genovese family had tried negotiation, sent representatives to offer Frank protection in exchange for 40% of his profits. Frank told them where they could put their protection. They tried intimidation, sent soldiers to rough up Frank's dealers. Frank sent them back with broken bones and a message: stay out of Harlem. By August 1971, the Genovese family was done talking. They wanted Frank Lucas eliminated, but there was a problem. Frank was too visible, too connected, too protected. You couldn't just shoot him in the street. He had bodyguards. He had informants. He had half of Harlem watching his back. So they hired a professional, someone who specialized in close-quarters kills, someone who could walk into a crowded place, do the job, and disappear before anyone knew what happened. Raymond Ice Walker. Ice was a Vietnam veteran, former Special Forces. He'd killed 19 people, 12 in Vietnam, 7 since he got back. They called him Ice because he never showed emotion, never hesitated, never missed. The Genovese family paid him $12,500 up front, promised him another $12,500 after the job was done. Make it public, they told him. We want everyone to see that Frank Lucas isn't untouchable. Ice studied Frank for 2 weeks, learned his routines, his habits, his patterns. Frank ate at the Red Rooster every Saturday night, always the same booth, always the same meal. Ribeye steak, medium rare with mashed potatoes and green beans, always with his wife Julie, and sometimes with business associates. Saturday, August 14th would be Ice's window. That Saturday, Frank arrived at the Red Rooster at 7:30 p.m. He wore a camel-colored suit with a brown silk shirt, gold chains, diamond rings. He looked like money because in 1971 Frank Lucas was money. Julie was with him, dressed in a white evening gown. They looked like celebrities, not criminals. The Red Rooster was packed, 150 people, live jazz band in the corner. The smell of soul food, fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread filled the air. Frank's usual booth was waiting for him. He sat with his back to the wall, facing the entrance. Old habit, never sit with your back to the door. They ordered. Frank got his usual. Julie got shrimp and grits. They were talking about a new property Frank wanted to buy in New Jersey. A legitimate investment, laundering drug money into real estate. At 8:15 p.m., Raymond Ice Walker walked in. Frank noticed him immediately. You don't survive in the drug game by not paying attention. Ice was wrong. His energy was wrong. He wasn't dressed like he was there for dinner. Black jacket, black pants, hands in pockets. He wasn't looking at the menu. He was scanning the room, looking for someone. Their eyes met, and in that split second, Frank knew. Ice started moving toward Frank's booth. Not running, walking. Confident, professional. Frank's hand moved to his waistband, but he wasn't carrying that night. He'd left his gun in the car. Mistake. Ice was 20 feet away, then 15, then 10. Frank stood up. "Julie, get down." "What, get down?" "Now." Julie slid out of the booth, dropped to the floor. Other diners noticed, started to panic. Ice pulled a knife from his jacket, 8-inch blade, military issue. The kind designed to kill quickly and quietly. He came at Frank fast, professional, aiming for the chest, the heart, but Frank Lucas hadn't survived this long by being slow. Frank grabbed the steak knife from his table, 6 inches, serrated, not ideal but better than nothing. Ice lunged, Frank sidestepped, the blade missed his chest by inches. Then Frank countered, fast, brutal. First stab caught Ice in the forearm. The military knife clattered to the floor. Second stab opened Ice's shoulder. They crashed into a nearby table. Plates shattered. Food went everywhere. People screamed, but Frank didn't stop. This wasn't a fight. This was survival. Third stab, fourth, fifth. Ice tried to fight back, threw punches, landed a few, but Frank was fueled by adrenaline and rage. By the 8th stab, Ice was on the floor. By the 10th, he was coughing blood. By the 12th, he stopped moving. Frank stood up, breathing hard, covered in blood, Ice's and his own. He'd taken a punch to the face. His lip was split, but he was alive. Ice was on the floor, wheezing. The 12th stab had punctured his lung. He was drowning in his own blood. The entire restaurant was frozen. 150 people staring at Frank Lucas, standing over a dying hitman. Frank looked down at Ice. Then he did something nobody expected. He stepped over Ice's body, walked back to his booth, sat down. His steak was still there. Cold now, but there. Julie was still on the floor, eyes wide with terror. "Frank, we need to go." "Not yet," Frank said calmly. He picked up his fork and knife. "Frank, are you insane? I'm finishing my dinner." And he did. Cut a piece of steak, put it in his mouth, chewed slowly. The restaurant was still frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just watched Frank Lucas eat his cold steak while a man bled out 6 feet away. Someone had called the police. Sirens were approaching. But Frank didn't rush, didn't panic. He ate 3 more bites. Then he set down his fork, wiped his mouth with a napkin, stood up. "Let's go," he told Julie. They walked out of the Red Rooster as paramedics were rushing in. Frank didn't run, didn't hide his face, just walked out like he'd finished a normal dinner. Raymond Ice Walker survived. Barely. They got him to Harlem Hospital in time to save his life. But he'd never be the same. One lung permanently damaged, nerve damage in his arm from the stabs. The police investigated, but nobody talked. 150 witnesses, and not one of them could remember what Frank Lucas looked like. It all happened so fast. It was self-defense. The other guy attacked first. The Genovese family got the message, loud and clear. Frank Lucas couldn't be killed. Not by negotiation. Not by intimidation. Not even by a professional hitman. The story spread through New York's underworld within 24 hours. Not just the violence that was expected in this business, but the way Frank ended it. Finishing his dinner. That detail became legendary. Dealers told each other Frank Lucas got attacked by a hitman and finished his steak. It sounded like fiction, but 150 people had seen it. 3 days later, a Genovese captain named Anthony Tony Provenzano requested a meeting with Frank. Neutral territory. Just a conversation. Frank agreed. They met at a diner in Queens. Tony Pro got right to it. The thing that happened at the Red Rooster, that was a mistake, unauthorized. The family had nothing to do with it. Frank smiled. Tony, you're a terrible liar, but I appreciate the effort. What do you want from us? I want what I've always wanted. To be left alone. I operate in Harlem. You operate everywhere else. We don't cross paths. We don't have problems. And if we say no, Frank leaned forward, then you send another ice, and another, and another, and I'll keep doing what I did Saturday night, until you run out of hitmen or you run out of money. Your choice. Tony Pro studied Frank for a long moment. Then he nodded. You've got balls, Lucas. I'll give you that. I've got more than balls. I've got product better than yours. I've got prices lower than yours. And I've got the respect of people who'll die for me. You can't compete with that. So you either accept it or you waste resources trying to fight it. Tony Pro reported back to his bosses. The Genovese family made a decision. Leave Frank Lucas alone. The cost of fighting him was higher than the cost of letting him operate. It was the same calculation every mob family would eventually make. Frank Lucas was too dangerous, too smart, and too well protected to eliminate. The Red Rooster became a pilgrimage site after that night. People would come in, ask to sit in Frank's booth, ask to see where it happened. The owner eventually put up a small plaque, August 14, 1971. Frank Lucas. Survival. Raymond Ice Walker disappeared after he got out of the hospital. Some say he moved to California. Others say he went back to Vietnam as a contractor. Nobody knows for sure, but there's a story unconfirmed that in 1978, someone spotted him working security at a shopping mall in Atlanta. When approached, he denied being Raymond Walker, said they had the wrong guy, but the person who saw him noticed something. Ice had a limp and scars on his forearm, exactly where Frank Lucas had stabbed him. Frank Lucas was arrested in 1975. His empire crumbled. He cooperated with authorities and served time, but years later a journalist asked him about that night at the Red Rooster. Why did you finish your dinner? Why didn't you just leave? Frank thought about it, because if I ran, I'd be admitting I was scared. I'd be showing weakness. In my business, weakness gets you killed. So I sat down and I ate my steak. I showed everyone in that restaurant and everyone who would hear the story that Frank Lucas doesn't panic. Frank Lucas doesn't run, and if you come for Frank Lucas, you better not miss. Were you scared? Frank smiled. Terrified, but fear is just information. It tells you you're in danger. Doesn't mean you have to show it. The Red Rooster closed in 1998. The building was demolished in 2003. But before it came down, someone spray-painted a message on the wall, August 14, 1971. Ice tried, Frank survived, and finished his steak. It stayed there until the wrecking crew arrived. If this story about survival, power, and the dinner that became legend inspired you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe the coldest revenge is showing no emotion at all. Comment below. Could you have finished your meal after what Frank just did? Turn on notifications, because next week we're revealing Frank Lucas's final days and the lessons he learned too late. Remember, in the criminal underworld, respect is earned through action, and Frank Lucas earned his one steak dinner at a time.